listeners to the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host Sana as always, and this is the podcast where business meets bold ideas and real conversations drive meaningful growth. Now, in this episode, we are diving deep into a topic that is personally one of my of huge interests, and also this topic challenges traditional corporate hierarchies and redefines how we see leadership in the modern workplace. And listeners, our guest is a provocative voice shaking the foundation of how leadership and employment relationships have been framed for decades. As the author of Employment Ethics, he asserts that leadership is not a top down power dynamic, but it is a two-way relationship that demands reciprocity, respect, and reform. So, if you have ever felt unheard or unvalued in a professional setting, or if you are a leader who is trying to do better, this conversation is absolutely for you. And listeners, please welcome my guest, Travis Schachtner. Travis, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really excited to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Okay, Travis, this is very interesting because you talk about leadership being a two-way dynamic instead of a top-down command, which challenges the traditional perspective, about corporate hierarchies or leadership. So, in your view, what specific behaviors um, signal a healthy leadership relationship?
Um, the catch with a healthy leadership relationship is that it is based on trust, and that trust is built in a two-way street. So if your leader can make a demand of you, you should be able to make a demand of the leader, right? And that two-way balance is how that trust is built. A leader gives you a task, and then you do the task and show that you're successful at it,
Mhm.
and that builds trust between both parties. The current leadership dynamic is, even at it in its definition, is I tell you to do a thing, and then
Mhm.
you do the thing.
Yep.
Um, the other part to it is that um, leadership in itself, when we specifically talk leader, we are talking about a role, especially in a corporate environment. And the skills and traits that are desirable for a leader is often conflicting with what that corporation wants out of its supervisors and out of its managers.
Mhm.
Um, Most businesses, when they're looking at their management and their leadership, those roles are designed for, like, for example, a manager's role is to manage resources.
Yep.
A supervisor's role is to ensure that a task is complete. Those don't really require those interpersonal skills that a leader really brings to the table. What a leader does is their main, where they thrive is in crisis, conflict, or change. And if you don't have any of that going on, and you're just trying to maintain the status quo, you're not really practicing your leadership. What you're practicing is management.
Oh, okay. Hmm. Do you have any case study or let's take it as a case study where you actually have made these observations or maybe been a part of these dynamics, where actually a leader was more into day to day managing rather than working at a larger level, at a bigger level, putting out fires, working on strategies, expansion, scaling, like the bigger stuff.
Yeah. No. Well, it as you move up in a corporation, your interpersonal skills, the demand for change and stuff like that, the demand to make an impact is it grows. So
Mm.
you're going to need more leadership skills. But when we're talking at the front, like the front lines of management, they your managerial skills is what's really going to matter for maintaining the day-to-day activities, and you're not just you won't have the formal power to implement any major change without managing the processes within that. So um my easiest example is just human resources. Human resources, that is an entire field where inside human resources you have leaders in there trying to make change
Yeah.
within human resources, but within most corporations, human resources is really just making sure that, hey, we're meeting all of our legal requirements. We're meeting all of our when it comes to our employees. We're making sure all the paperwork is properly processed. We're making sure um we're meeting all of our uh safety standards and stuff like that. If any issue comes up, we're we're making sure that it is an act like we're investigating, and when we if some and when something happens, whether or not if somebody brings something forward, they are going to be bringing that thing forward expecting change. So the results of that might require leadership at the end, but up until that point, you're really just managing and investigating, and that's where that communication lies, because management, when you're saying you're managing stuff, it doesn't sound as cool. But when you're saying you're being a leader, it's like,
And that's cool.
but especially when it comes from the bottom up, what ends up happening is people are assumed that people that place themselves in that leadership role then allow themselves to label everyone underneath them a follower,
Mm.
right? And that's the catch. Like I've at the very bottom of the pile, I'm not a follower. I am a hired employee trying to do my job so I can go home and hang out with the people that I actually believe are leaders. I can volunteer my time with people who are actually leaders that I view as leaders. But
Mm.
by employment, you're not a leader. I am here to do a job. I'm mindlessly putting my widgets together, and then I am leaving to actually participate in the rest of that leadership role, or who to respectfully interact with the people I view as leaders.
It's quite an interesting distinction. And I agree with you. I agree with you, Travis. So I've seen so many leaders, be it CEOs or founders, they equate performance with control. But as in context of your framework, collaboration and listening, they definitely play much bigger role. Because it makes everyone who is led by the leader feel more valued, contributed, equal, and
Mhm.
listen. And that's what plays a very vital role at the individual level as well as the organization level as well. Um, and talking about your book, Travis, Employment Ethics, you argue that ego-driven leadership creates toxicity. Um, Now here's the catch that sometimes, I mean, that line between confidence and ego is kind of a blurred line, because people will say that no, sometimes you need ego, sometimes you need confidence to make sure that you achieve the target, or you have to look at the bigger picture. It may look right now, it may hurt some of my team members, it may look good to some of my team members, but if I look at from a bigger picture, it is working. So I should not think about whether it's my ego driving or it's looking as if I'm confident. So, how do you help draw that line? How can employees spot the difference early on?
The main In my book, what I really try to highlight is that if we assume that we what I mainly try to highlight is that the base of all of this in the world of work it is that it's a transactional relationship between employees and employers. So this is before leadership comes into play. So if you want to have your employees believe in you as a leader, you need to have a respected relationship that's a two-way street. So, and where it really came from was, if all employers can say, I demand a basic level of work ethic, and work ethic is typically defined as productivity, reliability, autonomy, and collaboration. If all employers can say, I want this level of work ethic, to have a respected two-way relationship that trust can be built on, what are the basic things that all employees should be able to demand of employers? So that way, all relationships should be a two-way street. It's
Mm.
just that's the healthy relationship, right?
Right.
So if for employee or for the employer ethics side, it was we employers should be making sure that they're providing a safe and secure workspace for their employees. That
Mm.
they're having a responsible impact on the surrounding environment, the physical environment. So that way they can ensure the legacy of their company within the community that they're in. They're not poisoning their potential workforce. They're paying us a community supporting wage. That way the community that they're in can thrive. The small businesses in that community can thrive. And the tax base is solid. So that way they're getting educated employees when in the future. And the final one is, a lot of people are obsessed with the relationship between like leader and follower, but with that transactional part, we're not looking for respect. What we're looking for is an accountable professional relationship. I can
Mm.
ask you to do a task, and then you do the task, and we just maintain that neutrality in our relationship. And then it's up to both parties whether or not they want to pursue a deeper relationship going forward. Um, or is that person meeting those relationship needs in another part of their life? And I think that's the important part, is that the professional relationship gives people the respect to find their needs outside of employment.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that absolutely makes sense, Travis. Ooh, okay. So as you mentioned about the relationship, what does a reciprocal employer-employee relationship look like in practice? I mean, beyond the theory, because if I would like to, if somebody asks me, then from what I have observed or experienced, it's mostly, as you mentioned, as a employer, I'll give you the task, I'll give you the deadline, give the directions, you have to just get it done. And my job is to, take the follow-ups and make sure that it gets done. But then further levels of communication, clarity, understanding, I think that is actually rare. I mean, ideally it should be, but it rarely takes place because there are multiple factors playing their role in themselves, which may not be, in control of the employer. So, what would you say on this?
There are there are multiple layers on this, what I would consider the basic accountability track, but the key component is that if you look at it as a healthy relationship, it should be that both parties are striving to meet these basic needs.
Mm.
In the beginning, if an employer is demanding a certain level of productivity, which I argue is the true base of employment ethics, is workers' productivity to the community supporting wage of the employer. Those two are the core component to all um relationships. But when it comes to the ethics and the boundaries between these two, is that both parties are striving to meet the needs of the other. In a marriage, you want to make sure that your spouse or you would like to believe that your spouse is striving to meet your needs, and you would like to strive to meet your spouse's needs, right?
Mm.
That's the trade-off. And then that's where I argue about employment ethics. Both parties should be actively striving to meet the needs of the other. Um, and a lot of these are the catch is with the what I label as employment ethics in general, or the employer ethics, is that that accountability part. With when it comes to work ethic, the final arbiter of if I'm meeting their needs is my
Mhm.
employer. But when it comes to the employer side of meeting the employee's needs, in most areas around the world, it's the government that's making sure that the employer is meeting the needs of their employees, because it is actually the government that has the capability to take that very long-term view.
Mhm.
Whereas most corporations, especially, they're looking at it from a short-term window in comparison. They're 5 years max, whereas the government's like, I want to make sure this town is thriving forever.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it's that component between the two that's really important.
Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. And uh, I mean, this can be such a cliche, Travis, but and it is heard so many times, especially in the HR circles.
Yep.
Companies will say that we treat our team like family. You are a part of our family. I mean,
And
yes. Uh-huh.
that is a completely different topic though, because like I said, as when I look at employment ethics, I'm not looking for a familial relationship. I'm looking for a professional one. I
Mm.
don't want I get my feelings of family with my friends that are not employed by you. So when we talk about that, what I cover in my book is that the feeling of like, oh, we're all one big family here, blah blah blah. That leads into a commitment discussion. When
Exactly.
in HR they talk about what is researched in HR is that they don't research why people stay. What is researched is why do people not leave. So,
Okay.
and that's why it's not loyalty, it's commitment. And the we are a family. There in commitment, there are three, there's more, but there are three core components originally in commitment. It's the need to stay, the ought to stay, and the want to stay. And what I call them is those are the burdens of staying. So do I have the golden handcuffs where it's too expensive for me to leave? Well, that's need. You need to stay because you can't afford to go someplace else. When people say I ought to stay, well, that's guilt. That's a way to guilt someone. Like, you don't really want to leave them. They're your brother. They've been here just as long as you. They're your family. We're all a family. You don't want to leave your family. And then the want to stay is, look at the want is actually the hardest one to overcome, because I've dedicated my time and all my effort to this place for years. If I leave, I'm just throwing that all away. So now I'm locked into this place because I feel the pride in my work, and I feel guilty in leaving it. So that pride is holding me here, not anything else. And so that's like, the book really tries to demystify a lot of that stuff and
Yeah.
highlights like what I don't want. Like I said, we're not looking for a familial relationship. If I'm a bartender working at a bar, I'm not looking for a family at the bar I'm working at. I want to come in, serve my drinks, deal with my clients, and then leave. Go do something else.
Exactly.
That's where the importance though is that it's the relationship is employee employer.
Hmm. And then also, I mean, it cannot be just black and white. Yeah, there have been many, um, uh, I mean, sometimes it can be like, you have got good mentors or good friends, even from your workplaces, who will be, I mean, with whom you can have beautiful relationships, professional or maybe personal, and then you can actually can have not exactly transactional benefits, but your workplace can actually shape the way who you are I mean, we
Mhm.
scare, but it is possible. It cannot be just simple black and white. So,
Yep. No, it can't be over time. The catch is that if an employer is meeting your basic needs
mm,
and you're meeting the employer's basic needs, if that two-way street or two-way relationship is trust built over time and everything is going smoothly, you should be able to meet all of your especially you should be able to meet all your needs through that employer. I remember a long time ago my when I was young,
mm,
my dad would take us to company picnics. And,
okay.
he was like, everybody would chest thump that we're like, "I work for this company. They're leaders in their industry. They take care of their people." And 30 years later, like, no one cares that they beat with that they work at that company. They're considered like just another place to put in the grind. And, they've corrupted their own image because they've sacrificed trying to maintain their employment ethics, but still demanded a high work ethic from their employees. And
Mm,
that's where like the catch with all this is it's not that the key to this healthy relationship is being able to identify when it becomes toxic. And that's the key. That's another part to every relationship. If your relationship is you need to be able to identify if your relationship is becoming toxic. If and it might be, the company cares, but they put a person who shouldn't be a manager in charge of me.
true.
The person doesn't qualify for this position.
Mm,
And that can just as easily ruin a good relationship with your employer. But if you have a problem identifying the components to how the relationship is becoming toxic,
mm-hmm.
or you're just it does become toxic, but you're not going to rock the boat in any way, like that's that's where the corruption starts lying in that employment relationship. When people start saying, "I'm going to finish out my time here, but I'm going to try to make sure my kids don't work here
Mm.
because you're that because they don't take care of us like they used to." There and that's the corruption of that employment relationship.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense, Travis. Great. So before we wrap up, what advice would you give to emerging leaders who want to build ethical, mutually respectful teams from the ground up?
My biggest advice would just be understanding that anyone you if you're starting from the ground up, no one should be more motivated than you in the success, and demanding that they do that they have that high level of motivation. You're demanding that they basically replace you. That you so you can't demand higher than a basic relationship. I need you to meet my needs. And I need you to meet my needs, and I'm going to strive to meet your needs. But my bar isn't my relationship or connection to this company. My bar is what I need from you for this company to be done and or to be successful. And that is where that mutual respect comes in. Where if you really want to be a leader, that trust is built is accepting the fact that you need to be active in that relationship and not just passive, pass it on, and then expect everyone to be as motivated in everything else as you in what your company is doing.
Mm, good one. That's a good one, Travis. And of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and also get a hold of your book, what would be the best way?
Um, the best way would be to go to ftsleaders.com. Um, it's has access to all of my links and everything else. It also has where you can buy it early, but the book will be available on July 7th in physical copy. It's going to be published July 7th and on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all the other book distributors.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Travis, this was absolutely thought provoking conversation, discussion. on this because somewhere down the line, especially with uh, context to today's scenario and then the professional world, I think the discussions around employer relationships, workplace ethics, they have to be revived because they form the basics of any organization, whether it's a startup or it's a multinational corporation or it's an organization. So thank you so much for the work you are doing, and thank you so much for helping us understand that transforming employer employee dynamics isn't just about the HR policies, it is about mindset, intention, and shared humanity. So, thank you so much once again, Travis.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So, listeners, today we have peeled back the layers of leadership and looked at what it really means to create ethical, balanced workplaces. So, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who is navigating leadership or just trying to survive their 9 to 5. And connect with Travis, get a hold of his book, refer to the show notes along with this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to BizBlend and follow us on all platforms because it keeps the engines running here at BizBlend. Until next time, keep blending bold ideas with better business. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.